What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 77 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. It was mutiny. There was no other word for it. It happened in New South Wales, a British penal colony in Australia. A new governor had been sent from London, a man with a quick temper and a keen sense of duty. He soon came into conflict with the colony's officer corps. The governor considered his officers inept and corrupt, and moved to shut down the thriving rum trafficking ring that they controlled. The officers claimed he was a tyrant and was acting outside of the law. Eventually, they decided to depose him. In what later became known as the Rum Rebellion, 300 soldiers surrounded his house. They captured him at gunpoint and held him prisoner for more than a year. Eventually, a dramatic public court-martial in London convicted the mutineers and vindicated the governor. It was an experience that would have tested any man, but especially one who must have felt that history was repeating itself in a manner most cruel. For the governor of New South Wales was a British naval officer who was discovering the lightning could indeed strike twice. He was William Bligh, the ship captain famously deprived of his command nearly 20 years before in the mutiny on the Bounty. Bligh was at a dinner when he got word that the mutineers were coming to arrest him. He hid out in a small servant's room, hoping to escape. The soldiers who found him claimed he was hiding under a bed, which led to much taunting and accusations of cowardice that seemed to have stung Bligh more deeply than the rebellion itself. The mutiny on the HMS Bounty took place in 1789. It was set adrift in a small boat with a handful of loyal seamen and limited supplies. Bligh successfully navigated more than 4,000 miles to safety. So you see, it was like his conflict was deja vu. He had done this, and he was just being himself, and whatever occurred was based off of what these people perceived. Now, we go through life a lot of times determining whether or not the same thing is happening again to us, or whether or not we have seen this before. It's a lot of the idea of you go through something and you're going through that Rolodex, or you are that life is flashing before your eyes. You've heard people say that before as well, especially as something major is happening to them or something life-threatening. And so when they go through this, they're looking at, is this deja vu? Do I have a way to know how I'm going to navigate this? I can only imagine Bligh had some idea, but he didn't realize what these people were doing, because as it was happening, it was like, is this really happening? So he's going through these things again. This guy, whether or not there was validity to it or not, did they have a reason to mutiny him? Was it limiting their ability to do whatever it is they wanted to do? And he got held captive for it and all these different things. But ultimately, these guys got held accountable for what they did. And a lot of times what we do in life is we forget that just because something that we're doing is not liked by somebody else doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. And just because you have multiple people saying, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is the right way to do it, doesn't mean that it is the right way. Sometimes we have to hold to our values, hold to our morals, and know that what we're doing is the right thing. Now on today's episode, we have a guy who knows what he does, and knows the way in which he did it was in line with his moral compass and his ability to do that with integrity. He's a 20-plus year law enforcement veteran. with 10 years devoted to child crime investigation, including internet crimes against children. He's an experienced educator with 7 years teaching at Arizona State University, plus over 15 years of professional training covering law enforcement topics. In 2016, U.S. Attorney General Special Commendation gave him an award, a medal for distinction, and the Pinal County Attorney's Victims' Right awarded him a Distinguished Alumni Award. And he's got another book that actually dropped today as we're recording this. And so I want to introduce you guys to Mr. Randall Snyder. How are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And you know, like I mentioned, there's so much, and people think that they're doing right sometimes, and they're not. And I'm assuming with background investigation that you've done a ton of, and just investigation in general, people think they're doing right. But there's a number of, and then you say, hey, you're not, and you show it to them, and they realize, oh my gosh, I was wrong. But there's a number of people who do things, they know exactly what they're doing as they're doing something wrong. And yet they're trying to justify that as, no, I was doing this, and this is the, but they know that it's wrong. That's why they're trying to justify it as opposed to just going about their day. Am I right or wrong in that one?
Absolutely, Ken. And you know, it's funny that you mention it, because one of the things that I heard when I was doing my undercover operations, when I was actively engaging with these individuals online that were looking to sexually exploit and sexually abuse children, is they all had an excuse. They all had a justification in their mind for doing what they were doing. And, you know, as outlandish as some of those excuses were, and diluted as their thought processes were, they could rationalize it to themselves. They could justify doing these things and saying these things that any other rational person would say is horrible. It's unconscionable, and yet these guys had no issues with it. And so it was really a weird kind of position to be in as an investigator, because on one hand, I'm undercover and I'm kind of going along with this line of BS that they're throwing out. Right. And on the other side, here I am, I'm a cop, I'm a normal person, I'm a dad, and I'm looking at this going, man, you're nuts. You're really lost it there.
This is not close to good. This is evil. Yeah.
Right.
They don't get
it. And how is it that you can justify wanting to do these horrible things to what you believe to be as a child, and think that it's okay and that it's excusable, and now you're wondering, why are you under arrest? Why are you in handcuffs? So I saw that a lot throughout my career, and it was interesting that you know, Captain Bligh was kind of doing the same thing with something like I think it was rum.
Yeah, the rum rebellion.
Yeah, that they were fully justified in their minds, and yet rational courts later said, no, that doesn't work.
Right. I mean, and it's just crazy when you start looking at people, how they look at things or what they do, and you're trying to look at things through your let's say normal lens. You know, you're looking at it like, this is it, the right and wrong, black and white. This is how it is, and they're coming at you from a different angle, or looking through, you know, green lenses or whatever, and they're this is how I see it.
Right.
And you can't explain to them that's not right. That's skewed, and that's almost borderline evil, what you're thinking. And
some of them were absolutely evil, and yet in their minds, what they were doing was perfectly justified, either because they didn't see the harm it was committing, or they felt that because maybe they had been victimized as a child, it was okay to victimize somebody else. I mean, the number of excuses were amazing. The best ones were always, oh, well, I was doing an investigation. I was going to turn this all over to you for evidence. I just forgot, you know.
My whole goal. I forgot my goal. Right. I got too into whatever it is, the journey.
Right.
So so let's I mean, that's absolutely interesting conversation, and I want to get to it. However, I want to go back in time. I want to go way back. Who is little Randy? Who is this little guy how did he grow up, and why did he do what he did? What was his thing that he did? How did he play, and kind of sports did he do? Who is this little guy that you're trying to honor as a full grown man now?
So I was born in Colorado, and the area of Colorado that I was born in, the family's got fairly deep roots. We can actually trace back the first family members to the late 1800s, and they've been in the area for a while. But then, as far as kind of growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a cop. There was just something in me from a very young age. My mom used to tell me stories about how my imaginary friend growing up was the director of the CIA, and he lived in my watch, and I would talk to him in my watch. I was way above my time.
Sure.
I think that, Apple stole my idea here, but I could talk to him in my watch, and I would go off on little missions and things, and then come back and I saved the world with the director of the CIA. And so it was just one of those things that all through growing up, it's all I ever really wanted to do. It's all I ever wanted to be. And so pretty much everything I did was focused in that direction. When I was in sixth grade, I moved to Texas. And so I got a major culture shock there, going from small town Colorado to South Texas. And growing up there, I got to really see a whole different side of the way life could be, and different cultures and things like that. So when I turned 18, my stepdad always used to joke that when you turn 18, either you're moving out or we are. And right. I thought he was joking. Right. And 6 months later, he goes, "Hey, by the way, I got a job in Arizona. We're going to Arizona. I guess if you want to follow us, you can." And so I moved out to Arizona, and about 3 months later, I met a wonderful woman who eventually became my wife. And living in Arizona, we kind of just made our home here. And so when I was old enough, I started testing for agencies, and I got picked up with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, and I've been there pretty much ever since. I started my law enforcement career in 2000, and it was 3 months after our wedding that I got accepted and went down to the academy. Mm-hmm. And so it was an interesting kind of honeymoon phase for our marriage to have me down at the academy. But ever since then, it's just been a blessing to be able to do the job that I always wanted to do, and have an amazing family, and kind of starting to plan for those next phases of life.
Right. Were you like you play outside all the time? Or was that, just staying outside as long as you can until lights came on and then you had to go inside type of kid? Or did you?
I was actually more of a bookworm. Really? I love learning. I love reading. It was one of the things that my mom instilled in me, was this just love of reading everything I can. And so it doesn't matter if it's fiction, nonfiction. I love history. And so I did a lot of that kind of thing, trying to just learn everything that I could about as much as I could. Never really, I like watching sports, but I never really played them much. Mm-hmm. It was always in Colorado, it was too stinking cold most of the time. And then South Texas, it was too stinking hot most of the time.
So you just had to move to Arizona where it's hot all the time.
Right. Exactly. But it's a dry heat.
There you go.
Kind of like a broiler, but it definitely is a different kind of culture in Arizona, even than Texas and stuff like that. So it's been an interesting switch, but you get used to it eventually.
That's cool. And did you work towards knowing that, this is kind of what you want to do, this law enforcement and stuff, and obviously having this mental mindset of, wanting to go hang out with the CIA director and go on missions and things like that. Did you work towards that end in school? Take classes for that, or your electives and things like that? Or was it, I'm just not quite sure what I'm going to do when I graduate sort of deal?
Yeah, no, it was always a goal. And so for as much as I could with electives and things like that, I tried to focus in on that sort of thing. I was in Boy Scouts to kind of learn some of the more hands-on kinds of things that I thought would be helpful. And then when I got into high school, not only did I take some law enforcement classes, but I went through JROTC because I kind of thought at one point, well, if I can't be a cop until I'm 21, maybe I'll go into the military for a couple of years, go be an MP, and then come out. So I kind of played with that idea. And then as soon as I was old enough, I started doing citizen academies and ride-alongs with local agencies and things like that, so I could really, get an idea for what it was beyond, what you see on television. Right. I mean, a lot of people, their concept of policing is what they see on television. It's either the episode on Cops that it's all running and gunning and having lots of fun, or it's the thing they see on the news that we're all a bunch of a-holes that, that they should hate.
Right.
And so I wanted to really make sure that that's what I wanted to do and get as much hands-on opportunity for that. And so the opportunity of doing ride-alongs and things like that really gave me an inside look and prepared me for when I got into the academy and got into patrol work, that it wasn't such a culture shock.
What did you do for work between graduating and going to the academy? Did you go to college at all? Did you do any kind of anything like that? I mean, obviously you did the ride-alongs and the citizen academies and things like that, but those don't always pay.
Right. So immediately after college, or after high school, rather, I was working in retail. I worked at a mall. I had some fun. I ended up working for an airline for a couple of years. I worked for American Airlines when I was in Texas, and then when I came out to Arizona, it was America West at the time. And then that's where I ended up meeting my wife, was working for the airlines. And so I was just kind of finding those jobs, really, right, until I could be old enough to get into what I knew I wanted as my career.
That's cool.
I worked for a bank for a little while in a call center kind of setting. And finally, when I just got tired of sitting on phones all day long, I went and started doing some private security just to be able to get out and about and learn kind of that aspect.
Right. And I'm assuming your wife, girlfriend at the time, understood what you wanted to do, and she was 100% supportive. Or
95%. She, just like my mother was always supportive of the idea, although she would have preferred I went into federal service. My wife was always very supportive. She knew that it was one of those dreams, and while she had that fear that something was going to happen, or that something could happen, she knew that was my dream, and that's what I wanted to do. Part of the time that I was doing ride-alongs and testing and things, one of the agencies that I was testing with and that I was doing ride-alongs with on an almost weekly basis, and I was going through their Citizen Academy. 1 week, an officer came in and he was talking about his role in bike units, and he was a SWAT officer and stuff like that. And like 4 days later, he was killed doing an entry on a suspect.
Wow.
And so that's where the support level went down just a little bit after that. I can imagine. As the concern level went up. But even when I was in the academy and I was having to spend the entire week 40 miles away and come home on the weekend just in time to do some laundry and then go back, she was still there. She was my rock. She was my support, because she knew that's what was going to make me happy. And until I got it out of my blood, it wasn't going to make me happy, or I wasn't going to be happy. And, the great thing is, here we are 26 years later, because we started dating in 96 and we got married in 2000. We've been married ever since. She's been the one that has really kept me sane this entire time through, all the bad calls, all the years of child crimes, all the horrible things that I've done and everything else. She's the one that when I need a smack upside the head, gives me a smack upside the head.
Nice.
And when I need just a shoulder to cry on, she's my shoulder to cry on. And if I just need a lunch pack, she's there to pack my lunch for me. So,
and I think just talking about that really quick, that's that is such a big thing that I notice a lot of people I speak to, they're that spouse that is right there for them, supporting them. And I've talked to guys and girls, and that's why I say spouse, because sometimes I've had female officers on here who have talked about their husbands, that he was supportive. He wanted to make sure that I did what I needed to do, and I was there. My mind was right, and I didn't have to worry about this. And if I needed a shoulder to cry on, blah, blah, blah. And then the guys say the exact same thing. And so what I'm finding is that there's that line where you find that person who aligns with you and knows you and is supportive of you, wants to see you succeed. And it's a rare thing, because we find it in our world, but we also see it in our world that it's not that way, because how many times do we talk to people and they're just going through domestics and they're going through these life struggles, and they don't understand me. Well, you're acting like you're in junior high still, or you're acting like you're in middle school by the way you're treating each other. You have to be an adult here and understand that you have to root for that other person. And I notice that is another common denominator, is that the people who have the successful relationships and the successful marriages have that spouse that is rooting for them for their success. That is also working for their success. And it works both ways, because each one of us wants to see our spouse succeed also, and they're willing to do everything. But we also are able to see it on a grander scale, because things that we do are more, they're more time consuming, or they're more emotionally consuming, or anything along those lines, where we have so much more that hey, we just got a phone call at 2:00 in the morning. I've got to go. And your wife or husband wakes up with you, and they're making you a protein shake or something like that. You got something in you so you can get going, or putting a sandwich together or something like that, helping you find your shoes while you're over there brushing your teeth or something along those lines. They're helping you do that. And that's a rare thing. And I we don't give enough credit. And if there's anything that I could do to say thank you, those are the people that need a big portion of that.
Absolutely. Because, so many guys, going through law enforcement, and we see it in the military, we see it in lots of first responders, mm-hmm. that they don't have whatever that special thing is that they need with that spouse to have that support. And that's why you end up with these guys that they get to the end of their 20-year career and they're paying 4 different sets of alimony, right. Because they don't ever find that one person that is willing to be there and support them and help them, but that they have to reciprocate that. And
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where I was getting called out, and I was missing, birthdays and holidays and things like that. Mm-hmm. And she had to support me, but then I also had to be there to be able to help her when she was having a bad day, and recognize when she needed that extra leg up. And
right.
If it doesn't go both ways, it's not going to work. But when you find it, man, you gotta fight for it.
And that's
then the other problem is a lot of people don't fight for it nowadays.
Yeah, and cultivate it, and you have to mm-hmm. feed that, water that plant is the idea. It's going to be beautiful, but it takes a little bit of work, and sometimes you gotta pull the soil out and replant it, and all this different stuff. Get new nutrients to it. But either way, you have to continue maintaining it, and which is awesome. When I think one day I want to do and I probably mentioned on here before, I want to do a spouse of law enforcement episode where I get multiple on here, and they can just unload their worries and their fears, but they're also their support and their love and stuff like that. And I think I know quite a few solid spouses that are that way, and it's just finding time and getting everybody in here. But I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
To do that. So anyways, like we talked about, we went off on a little rabbit hole on that one, but, so you guys are getting married, and 3 months after that, you get accepted into the police academy at Pinal County. Did you test at other agencies?
I did. I had tested for, a couple of agencies in the Valley. I tested for Chandler Police, Mesa Police, Arizona State University Police, Apache Junction Police. As soon as I hit 21, I started putting out applications mm-hmm. pretty much wherever I could. And so I was looking at a couple of different agencies. And it's funny because while I was in the academy, I got an acceptance letter from another agency. And so, it was one of those things where I was already in the academy. I was already been picked up. I went with the first one that hired me, but it's weird to think back because the career that I've had with Pinal has been so awesome because of the size of the agency. We've only got about 250 sworn, but we cover over 5,000 square miles.
Right.
So, there's a lot of freedom, a lot of latitude, and a lot of ability to kind of find who you are and what your interests are. And they promote that to let you kind of do your thing and help you get into the niche where you want to be and where you're going to be successful. Some of these other agencies, I've worked with them all through my career. I know the guys over there, not to say anything bad about them, but city agencies have a whole different type of supervision and politics and things like that. And I just wonder if I'd have gotten into one of those agencies, if I'd have had the career that I did, that I can look back at and really say that I loved. I enjoyed, more often than not.
Yeah. That's, I see that across the board. I see a lot of people say the same thing. If I had to work over here at this agency or whatever. And I talked to a guy a couple weeks ago, Scott Savage, and he mentioned the same thing out of Central California. But he was saying that he worked for an agency and he was a supervisor and everything, and he went to another agency, went right back to regular patrol, and he was happier. And I said, what do you say to those people that say that, the grass isn't always greener? And he looked right at me. He said, the grass is greener. The grass is sometimes greener, and it is what you think it is. And so he was very happy with the decision he made, and he was able to actually flourish a little bit more in the agency that he switched over to. And that's not obviously an everybody sort of thing, but like you said, sometimes you get lucky and you find that right agency and you choose it, and it works out good for you, like apparently Pinal County did for you.
Yeah, and if you don't find the right fit, there's plenty of other agencies out there to go and look.
Yeah.
Sometimes the grass is greener. Sometimes you're just looking at it from the wrong angle.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes, you got to hit a couple of different lawns before you find the right. It is what it is. But I see that now with backgrounds as I'm part of the hiring unit. You get these guys that, they go from one agency and sometimes they stay, sometimes they hop right back and they go, yeah, that was a mistake, or it just wasn't my style of agency.
Right. And sometimes
and you got to find what works for you.
In their life, they're not ready for that. That culture may not be ready. You give them a year or two or a couple of years of growth and maturity, and all of a sudden they're ready. They're ready to hit the ground running. It just all depends, There's combinations. It's not just everything you're going to fit guaranteed, because we all change and everybody grows and everybody adjusts, and people and agencies. So it's kind of, So you go to the academy with Pinal, and do they have their own academy, or is it one that's kind of shared with other agencies throughout the state?
At that time, we had we used Central Arizona Regional Law Officer Training Academy. So it was on a college campus. It was a full-time academy, but we shared some of the facilities with the college, and we had agencies from all around the state. Since that time, the arrangement with that college has changed, and so we don't use that one anymore. We go to the Northern Arizona Academy. Some of the agencies in the state have their own that's specific to their agency. Most of them, though, use some of the regional academies because it's a little bit more cost effective, and they don't have to supply so much dedicated personnel to it.
I would assume something like Phoenix has their own, or something along those lines, right? Just the sheer size of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we contract out with a couple of different academies now, where we can supply, maybe one or two people for the staff, and then other agencies are helping fill that in too. So it's not quite so labor intensive just for our personnel.
Okay. So you get into the academy, you do well there, I'm assuming, and you get out and you hit the ground running.
Yep, did well. I did 5 years in patrol, and I was fortunate that the patrol area that I got assigned to was fairly close to my house. For the most part, I didn't have to spend too much time going back and forth. And the cool thing about Pinal County is we have take-home cars. So I literally went on duty from my driveway. I went off duty from my driveway, and the times that I was working in my beat, living in my beat rather, I could come home for lunches, stuff like that. If I needed to pick the kids up or, go grab something for my wife or whatever, there was that latitude to be able to do that. There was some times, especially after I promoted to corporal in 2005, where I was working on the other side of the county. And there were times where I had an hour and a half drive each direction. And the only benefit to that being county gas, county car, county time, they're paying me to drive back and forth. So what am I going to complain about? But in the 5 years that I was in patrol, and then another 5 years that I was a supervisor, I worked every area of the county. I've seen every hill and dale and gone up and down every street. And, every area has its own kind of flavor, so to speak. I don't know how familiar you are with Pinal County, but we cover pretty much all of the landmass between Phoenix and Tucson. And when I first started, it was primarily rural. We had lots of farm area. We had lots of open desert, lots of orange groves, cotton farms, things like that. It's turned into a little bit more of a suburban community where we have a lot of the families that work in either the Phoenix Valley or the Tucson Valley that live in Pinal County because the real estate was a little bit cheaper.
Oh, I see.
But we've got along the southern edge and the western edge, we've got I-10 that runs through. So we get a lot of traffic, and especially being as close to the border as we are, a lot of the smuggling and dope and things like that go through. In our Casa Grande area, I-8 breaks off of I-10 and goes straight through Yuma to San Diego. So we have a lot of the California influence. But along the eastern edge, it's all mountain region. So we have copper mines and things like that. And that's a whole different group of people and the way that they live and the way that they interact than the ones down in Casa Grande that have the California influence and the stuff like that.
Right.
So it's been really neat to see all the different areas and be able to work with all the different groups of people that you have, because the ones in the mountains are totally different than the ones down in the valley.
Right. And I would assume that you get all sorts of guys that are working for you, all sorts of guys that are deputies there that are that way. I know I met a group of guys from Pinal County, and we got chit-chatting with them for a while, and they were specifically set up for a lot of the immigrant traffic that was coming up over the border and stuff like that. But I also got a buddy that moved from Oregon and went down and works down Pinal County. Good guy, and this is the life. He loves it down there, And I've actually had dinner with your guys' sheriff, great guy, and I'm still trying to get him on my podcast, by the way. But he's been a busy man. But so if you can have any influence, let me know. But I've talked with him, and he's just as open about the whole thing too, and he has a very similar mindset in regards to it, that he just loves the area and the people because of the diversity of everybody being there. It's just the cultural diversity, like you said, mountain people, or not mountain people, but the people that live closer to the mountain range, and then those that are coming from California with that mindset, and just everything else in between. So
and it's funny that you mentioned Sheriff Lamb, because the piece that you opened up with reminds me of, I just started reading his second book that just dropped this week. And he's talking about standing up for your beliefs, even when it's hard to do or when it's not popular to do. And he talks about some of the historic issues with, Washington during the Revolution, and the troops weren't happy with what was going on because they kept losing. And yet, because Washington was able to stand up for, his beliefs and really lead from the front, it was able to inspire the troops to be able to eventually win the war.
Right.
And so it tied in with what you were talking about at the beginning of this. And I thought that was kind of interesting. The timing was interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know how it works. Whatever story that I choose to open something up with, I find some kind of reason that I see how there could be a connection, and whether it seems like I'm blowing smoke or whatever, but sometimes it's a God thing that it happens that way. So it's kind of cool that you were able to see that correlation. But so you did patrol for 5 years overall between being on the road and being a supervisor in it, and then you get the bug to, hey, I'm going to do something else. I want to get out of patrol. I want to try to do some more other stuff.
Well, as a supervisor, I had 5 years also. So it was a total of 10 years on the road in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
5 of it as slick sleeve, 5 of it as a supervisor. And I knew that before I promoted to sergeant that I wanted to get investigative experience. The best sergeants that I'd ever had, almost universally had time in investigations. They understood how to do the deeper investigations, and doing that sort of thing had always intrigued me. I like digging into stuff. I like learning things. I like being able to find out the whys. And even when I was on patrol, if I had the opportunity and I had the time, I tried to dig into cases, and especially toward the end of my patrol time, I was really trying to take on as much of the cases I could before I absolutely had to turn it over, because I wanted to learn those steps. I wanted to write the search warrants. I wanted to learn how to do those sort of things. And so in 2010, we had a new sheriff coming in, and he decided to get rid of the rank of corporal. He decided that he was just going to have, straight from deputy to sergeant. He wasn't going to have that middle rank there. And so all of us that were corporals, we got to keep our pay, but we were essentially losing rank, and we had the option of either testing up for sergeant or moving into investigations or staying as a slick sleeve. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to be in investigations. I knew I wanted to do that before I tested for sergeant. And so I put in for investigations, and I ended up in persons crimes, which is a unit that we have that does pretty much everything except for robbery, homicide, that a person can do to another person. We have a property crimes unit that deals with burglaries and thefts and frauds and things like that. We did attempted homicide. We did felony domestic violence. We did adult sexual abuse. We had child sexual abuse and child physical abuse. And the child crimes were by and far the largest of our caseload, and the majority of what we did. And so it was an interesting education for me at that time, because when I moved into investigations in 2010, my son was about 7. My oldest daughter was 2 at the time, just a little over 2, and we were pregnant with my youngest. And so to go into child crimes and start learning of the different aspects of that was kind of a weird education, but I could relate back to it. The fact that, I wanted to know how better to protect my kids and how to prevent some of the things that were happening to these kids in my cases from ending up at my doorstep. Right. And so I did that for about 4 years, and really had some interesting times with that, because I was part of the Arizona Child Abduction Response Team, where we would respond out anywhere in the state if a child was abducted or missing, and assist with the searches on that. I became a forensic interviewer so that I could conduct the interviews with children and be able to do it in a court-approved forensic fashion. And it was within that work that I started kind of looking at the sex trafficking angle and the internet crimes angle, and started realizing that if I really wanted to try and make a difference, I there was a way to do that I would have almost a global impact. Well, I did have a global impact,
right,
as opposed to just in my community. And so I kind of eventually moved my way into doing the internet crimes because it just seemed like that was the progression and the track that I was taking.
Nice. That's cool that you looked at it like that. Before we get too deep into that, can you tell us a good time? At what point did you start seeing yourself maturing as a police officer? So I want to go back just a little bit. Was it, because you started when you were 21, 22?
I was right at 23 when I finally got into the academy.
And you're still obviously trying to figure yourself out, trying to know yourself and all this different stuff. What was a major thing that occurred that made you realize, okay, I'm seeing, and that really kind of opened your eyes to what's going on, because you're not trying to figure it out anymore. You're going through it. You've been doing this enough, a couple years after you graduated the academy. At what point was there a certain instance that you kind of just, you instantly matured and you said, okay, I see this switch?
I think it's probably about 3 or 4 years in. It was a little after my son was born, and I kind of started, we had a big hiring influx at that point. So we had a bunch of new guys coming in, and they started kind of looking at me and talking to me, because now I was one of the old guys. I wasn't the low guy on the totem pole anymore.
Right.
We had this hiring push, and so we have all these new guys coming in. And as they're starting to ask me questions and I'm able to answer them,
sure.
I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so maybe I've got this kind of figured out. And so when the corporal position started coming available at the end of 04, start of 05, I thought, maybe that is the track that would be good for me, because I'm able to take the stuff that I've learned and take the experience that I have, and I'm already kind of passing it on. And that's when I started kind of realizing that, yeah, maybe I've got this kind of figured out.
Yeah.
And then I go in as a supervisor, and I'm thrown right back into, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. What do you mean there's new paperwork? I got to follow this guy around and do what again?
Right.
Timesheets, what? Reports, what?
Yeah, staffing. I got to find someone to fill staffing. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean you're calling off sick? Call somebody that, does something about that.
You're the one. Oh.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, and the funny thing was, out of the 5 years that I was corporal, there was probably off and on about 3 of that I was an acting sergeant, because one of my sergeants decided to get himself in some trouble and get fired. And another one of the sergeants got crosswise with the admin and ended up on some leave for a while. And for a little while, we were down some sergeants just because of attrition and things like that. And so not only was I a corporal, but I ended up as an acting sergeant for a fair amount of that, and really having to grow up fairly quickly as a supervisor and figure out how to do stuff, because I didn't always have somebody else around to lay it on.
Right. And that's and I find that to be I guess a poignant question, because you see how people, we grow up fast in the police world. You have to grow up fast. How many times do you say a 27-year-old and you say, now they've got it figured out at 27. We never really do ever have it all figured out. However, you mature and you start seeing yourself, and you throw some confidence on top of yourself, and some well-earned and well-deserved confidence, not some internet bolstered confidence where you can walk around and, oh yeah, I know everything because I saw it on the internet. No, you've actually lived it. You've seen it. You've had to go deal with it and how to work through it, and you've shared it, you got it off your chest, and you're now able to assimilate it and then put it back into a working model of whatever. And I think we forget that sometimes, that as police officers, we have to grow up a little bit quicker than other folks. Because how many people you see come out of college and they still are trying to figure out what they're going to do especially the ones who, they may graduate at 23, 24, something like that. But those that go to, law school or medical school or whatever, that have another, 4 or 5 years under their belt, they have to still do. So by the time they're 26, 27, I got to go find a job now.
Right. Well, and we even see it in law enforcement sometimes. You have that person that comes in, goes through the academy, comes out on the road, and still is just like, yeah, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And the next thing you know, now they're a realtor, or they're,
Right.
they go find something else because it's just that it's not for them, and they've got to figure out their niche. And I was fortunate that I found my niche kind of on the first real swing with law enforcement, and knowing that's what I wanted to do. And I found the department that gave me the opportunity to kind of grow up at the same time that I was figuring things out, and really learn as I needed to be able to be comfortable and be successful.
Yeah, that's cool. That is super cool. So we're going to go back forward then. You are now in, I guess, kid trafficking crimes at this point, or kid sexual investigations? What were we calling it?
So in persons crimes, like I said, we did a little bit of everything. I had some domestic violence things. I became a trainer for domestic violence strangulation, things like that. But really, because child crimes were the bulk of my caseload, I started looking at them. And in 2012, our computer forensics guy came to my desk one day. He was on light duty, so he could do some stuff at his desk, but he couldn't go out and play. Came to me and said, "Hey, man, I got a case. It's an internet crimes against children. I'm going to walk you through this because it needs to get done, but I can't do it. And I trust that you'll be able to." And I said, "All right, cool." So we started looking at it, and essentially what it was there was a guy in our area that had been downloading and distributing images of child sexual exploitation materials online, and getting to kind of dig into it and figure it out, and then writing the search warrant and going and hitting the house was really neat. And getting to kind of then see, after we got the computers and we got the statements and things like that, watching him do some of the back end stuff and the forensics things. And I thought, oh, this is kind of neat. Well, then about a year later, I got another case where a girl was being ultimately, it ended up being kind of a revenge porn sort of thing, but we didn't have a term for it then. And so again, sending off subpoenas to the internet companies and things like that was interesting. And the concept of sex trafficking was just kind of starting to hit the media and hit the radar on law enforcement. And so I went to my captain. I said, hey, I kind of want to check out this internet stuff. And he goes, well, we're talking about doing an internet crimes against children investigator. Reach out to some of your contacts, find out what the testing process should be, what the qualifications should be, write it all up and tell us who we should hire, and then make sure you put your name in. Well,
here's why you
I'm
hire
not
me.
stupid or anything.
Sure.
Let me tell you, the perfect ICAC detective is a white male, approximately 6 feet tall, with light brown hair and blue eyes. That's statistically speaking.
Loving wife, 3 kids. He lives in lives at this address right here. Yeah.
Exactly. And at the time, I was going to school. I was at Arizona State University. I finished my bachelor's in 2011 and decided, hey, let's spend more money, and got my master's. And so right about this time, I was just kind of in the process of completing my master's as well. And some of the classes that I had taken were on sex crimes and things like that. And I thought, this is really interesting. And so I put in for this internet crimes position, and shockingly got it. And one of the first things that they did was my captain said, okay, I want you to go up to the state task force, the Internet Crimes Against Children task force. They're based out of the FBI building in Phoenix, and you're going to go shadow them for a month and figure out how to do your job. Okay, cool. So I get up there and I start doing it. And the Phoenix sergeant who was running the unit said, hey, would you like to be embedded with us? Would you like to be a task force officer and be with us full time? And I said, yeah, that sounds cool. And my captain signed off on it. So I went through the background process and got my federal creds, and was embedded as a task force officer with the Internet Crimes Against Children task force up in Phoenix, and did that for 2 years. And boy, that's drinking from a fire hose when it comes to that kind of a thing, because
I can imagine. Yeah.
they're getting cases constantly. And we ended up building some pretty big cases. We did some international cases. We did more than I could have ever imagined.
And multi-suspect type cases, not just like one guy doing something in his basement or whatever, right?
Right. One of the biggest cases that I worked, and we ultimately ended up calling it Operation Optimus Prime because of the size of it. We get a Priority 1 cyber tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And a Priority 1 says there is active abuse going on right now. You need to drop everything and hit this. And long and short of it was, we ended up finding out that there was a woman here in the Phoenix area who was engaging in communications online with multiple different guys about child sexual abuse. And as part of it, she was actually sexually abusing two of the kids that were within her care. She was taking pictures of the abuse that she was perpetrating. She was sending it off to multiple guys online. One of the guys that she was sending it to was in England, and he was sexually abusing a 2.5-year-old girl that was in his care and sending her the pictures of that. So they're trading the images back and forth while they're sexually abusing these kids.
Jeez.
She's also talking to 3 other guys here in Arizona, a guy in Illinois, a guy in Oregon, and a couple others that we were never able to fully identify, and in exchanging some of the images and things with them. And at the same time, she was having communications with these guys saying, I want to have your baby so that we can start from birth and abuse it from birth, because then we can raise it right.
This is the thing we were talking about before. These people that are looking through some kind of weird lens, that they think that they're doing something right, and it's more skewed, more crooked than a lightning bolt.
Yeah, it's the most horrific thing people could think of, and it's more horrific than most people would think of. So through that case, we ended up arresting her, obviously. We rescued the 2 kids that she was abusing. We coordinated with the authorities in England, and they were able to take that suspect into custody and rescue that child. We arrested the 3 suspects here in Arizona. And then we reached out to Oregon, and we were able to get an arrest on that one. We reached out to Illinois. That one, there wasn't quite enough for them to be able to fully take that guy down. But I found out about 3 years later, he reoffended in Louisiana, and Louisiana ended up picking him up.
Weird. Illinois wasn't able to find charges on a guy that committed heinous crimes. Huh.
Yeah, it was... not everybody puts the same amount of effort and emphasis on these crimes as other people do.
Right, right.
I'll be generous and just say that, those guys did a job.
Noted.
And then through that investigation, we were able to do some account takeovers, and that helped us infiltrate into a number of other different chat boards that all they did in that chat board was trade images back and forth and communicate back and forth about ways to abuse and exploit children.
Holy
and
cow.
By having that in and having that vetted persona in there, we ended up building a number of other cases. Long and short, it was about 25 different cases that ended up kind of spiraling out of that one investigation. The good news is the female that was originally identified in that case, she took a plea, and she's doing 35 years in Arizona. The guy in England, he took a plea in England, or he was convicted in England, and the English authorities tell me that it was one of the strictest sentences they've ever seen handed out to anybody. They said,
Really?
Murderers don't get this much. He got 17.5 years.
Wow.
Which to me sounds pretty light, but to them is a major thing. So, hey, can't be upset by that. The guys in Arizona all ended up with anywhere between 15 and 25 years for the most part. The guy in Oregon got, what did he get? He got like 17 years, if I remember correctly. And so, it was a huge case, and it was successful and a great learning experience for all of us, because we got to use some new technology in our forensics, and we got to interface with foreign countries and do all kinds of things, and we got the new investigative tools with those account takeovers to be able to build a bunch more accounts, and it ended up being successful in other investigations later on because of what we learned from that.
What was the original thing that tipped you off with her? Was it just happenstance, or did you guys, somebody give you a tip? Or
so anytime any electronic service provider in the U.S., if they come across what they believe to be indication of children being exploited or abused on their platform, they're required by federal law to notify the National Center. And the National Center then takes that, it's called a cyber tip, and distributes it out to the appropriate law enforcement agencies. In this case, this woman happened to have a Gmail account, and she had a Google Drive account, and she didn't realize that every time she took a picture with her phone, it automatically uploaded to her Google Drive in addition to saving on the phone. So it uploads to her Google Drive. It's showing her sexually abusing this kid. Google comes across this and goes, whoa, this isn't right. Shoots it over to the National Center. They send it to us. We go out and we find her.
Right.
And then when we dump all of her electronics, that's where we start finding the communications that she'd had on multiple other platforms with all of these other guys, all of these other places, and kind of spiderwebbed out from there.
Man, and that's awesome that they do that. I mean, how many times does that happen, though, that they don't, or something along those lines? I mean, I like to say that it's an every time thing, but there's only so much, and I can only imagine how much of this perversion is actually out there.
Well, to give you a number, so every week the National Center sends out statistics. They say this is how many reports we've gotten in the last week of various types. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. The stats that I saw, or the email that I got, indicated that they had received a little over 1 million tips into the center during that 7-day period, just on the child exploitation, just on pictures and images. There's a whole other, line item for the enticement, the people that are talking to kids, trying to set up a meet to sexually abuse them. There's a whole other line item for the sex trafficking, where the kids are being bought and sold and rented out, for lack of a better term. There's a whole slew of different categories that they fit in, but just the images alone, in a 7-day period, there was over 1 million reports.
Jeez Louise. Dang, man. I know you're being professional, and I know you're talking about it, but there is a special place for these people, man. There really is.
Dante gave 9 circles for hell. I like to think there's a 10th somewhere in the lower collection area of Satan's outhouse, specifically for those people. That's where I like to picture they're at. Seriously.
There's no excuse. There's no justification. There is no way that you can honestly think that this is okay, unless you are screwed in the head from the get-go. You've got to have something seriously wrong upstairs to think that this is okay, or hey, yeah, there's other people that also go along with this, and there happens to be. But dang, man, this is ridiculous. That is so evil, so vile. I couldn't imagine.
And I talk about, there are a couple of cases over the 10 years that I was doing child crimes that really stick out, that I can say that is one of the most evil, foul people that I could possibly have ever imagined, that I had to deal with. And there's a special place for him, and I hope it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, me too. And I went through I remember hearing about a girl, and there's a YouTube video on it, and that's how I learned about her in a class. And they said, hey, watch this video for like a homework. And so we did this, and basically there was this girl, she was 3 or something like that. And she's being interviewed by a doctor, going over this different stuff. And she's talking about how she recalls being sexually assaulted. Now, she's 3 years old, and she's going over how she remembers when she was 1.5 or 1 year old being sexually assaulted by, her father had gone to prison. Her mom had died. And so she'd been adopted by the time she was 3. However, her father, who had gone to prison, was this sexual assaulter. She was so messed up that she, just from that she wanted to kill her foster parents, her now adopted parents. She wanted to kill they would lock her in her room at night because she would try to get up in the middle of the night and stab them. That was their fear. And that's what she actually said, well, that's what I want to do. I want to kill mommy. And then her parents would come walking in, and they would see her like sticking pins and needles in their dogs, that sort of thing, because she's so depraved that she doesn't know, because that's what she thinks. And they say, well, why did you stop? Well, because I heard mommy coming, that sort of thing. And she goes through this whole thing. And the whole time she's telling the story, she has zero remorse that she's that way. She wants to kill her little brother. She would do things to her little brother, to the point where her parents would catch her playing with herself, and she would just stop in like a grocery store and start doing it until it's so vile. I mean, you have to watch it, and I forget the name of the girl, but this whole thing goes through this. They have this whole documentary, and then by the time she's 5 or 6, she's gone through so much therapy and gone through so many different things that they're asking her, hey, they're still talking with her, and she's talking about it, but she's starting to show remorse. And she actually breaks down in one of the videos that they show in the thing, that she starts showing remorse for this. And that's when they start realizing they have a breakthrough. And then it just stops, that she's actually doing okay, but they just don't know if she'll ever be normal or whatever. Well, this is in the 80s that this happened, that she was a little kid. If you Google her name now, find out about her, she's like a nurse. She doesn't have a family. She says she refuses to have kids because she wants to, She doesn't trust herself around children because she doesn't know how she's going to act. But she goes, nope, I want to dedicate my life to making sure people are okay, and I can't have kids and do that. But she works as a nurse in a hospital, taking care of people, because it's her penance, she says, for the vile thoughts she had and the way she was raised. But even at that young age, that skewed her mind so much that she didn't know what she did. So you see these kids who are messed up that are either mean or whatever. It's not because that's just the way they were born. Somebody messed them up. Somebody did something they shouldn't have done. And it has a long-lasting effect.
It absolutely does. And, there's a lot to be said for the ability to rewire somebody when they've had that sort of trauma.
Yeah.
There's a really great book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's primarily focused on the concept of PTSD, especially as it applies to first responders and military, and how traumatic incidents as an adult, or even as a late teen, early 20s, causes physiological changes in the brain and changes the way that the chemicals react in your body, and the wiring is set for you to act and react to certain things. But they also look at traumas from very young kids, and we know how malleable a child's brain is, because it's not done forming until well into the 20s. And that if you can catch that kid and fix that trauma, that the opportunities to be able to recover from that are significant, and there's a good likelihood. But the problem comes in that oftentimes these kids are abused by somebody in the home. It's not ever discovered, or it's not discovered for many years.
Right.
There's not any treatment that's ever provided to them. And so a kid that could be saved isn't, and that's the ones that go later on and end up perpetrating and things like that. 80% of child sexual abuse occurs either in the home or by somebody known to the family.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the whole thing that we don't think about, is that those people closest to him, we have to watch. We got to watch everybody, and it's not so much that we can't trust anybody, but we need to be helping people stay accountable. You know,
Right.
It's even ourselves, and not to say that we've done anything, but the idea is help keep people be accountable. You know, just that you have to have people in your life that care about you and know you and will take care of you just as much as let's say peer support. And I've talked to a lot of people on here for peer support, and they're talking about you got to have relationships with people and you have to know them. And if somebody's acting a little bit out of sorts, you need to come up alongside them. Hey, you doing okay? And if there's somebody in your circle, in your family, in your whatever, that might just need a little somebody to come alongside and keep them on the straight and narrow, then you have to do that. But it's not that there's a lot of bad people, but it's our job to help take care of each other, which is the same reason our job on this planet is to be here for other people, you know?
Right. Well, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of the education out there now is gone away from the stranger danger concept and moved more toward, letting children know what's right, what's wrong, what is appropriate behavior, what's inappropriate behavior, and that no matter who is doing it, that you have somebody safe that you can talk to, whether it's
Right.
a teacher, whether it's the principal, whether it's, whomever.
Yep.
Empowering children to feel comfortable speaking up, even when the perpetrator is somebody that they know, so that the behavior can be stopped and that they can be, rescued and taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's huge, and we forget so much how people, we're sensitive, and that even though the toughest of us, we're still human, and there's still scars that can occur in our psyche where we can have PTSD or we can have PTSI or whatever the case may be. And the smallest among us, it's so much easier for them to be, because they haven't formed, their brains haven't formed, they haven't figured out this sort of thing. So they need more protection than the rest of us,
Right.
You take grizzled cops, like, a lot of guys that we know, and they can handle a little bit more. They still need to get the offload. They still need to offload it, but they can handle a little bit more. But these little ones, they can't do it, man. They cannot.
Right.
They don't know how to navigate through weird stuff because their brain just hasn't formed. And so now they're developing these neural pathways that they shouldn't be developing. It's horrible. Horrible. So you go through this, you're on this task force, you guys are knocking that out of the park, picking up these people who need to be put away. And did you stay on the task force, or did you go back to working in the county on the regular?
So I stayed on the task force for 2 years, and then rotated back to the county and continued working the same types of cases from 2016 when I rotated back to the beginning of 2021. And in January of 2021, I was eligible to retire from the sheriff's office. And so I went ahead and put in my papers. I retired. Unfortunately, for as much as I loved the job and for as much as I felt, the gratification of being able to do a good job and protect people and help kids all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
The sheer quantity of what I was seeing and what I was dealing with had reached a level that I just couldn't handle anymore.
Yeah.
In 2015, I started having some issues with depression. I was trying to work on that, but I wasn't doing a good job of it.
Mm-hmm.
About 2018, I started really recognizing the issues and started really trying to work on it. And I got diagnosed with the PTSD, and I was having anxiety. I was having depression. I was having flashbacks. I was having a lot of issues, not being able to clear those images out of my head. I mean, there was times when I was working both on the task force and off, but especially on the task force,
Mm-hmm.
we would work 3 search warrants a week. And, we were popping warrants left and right. And when you hit a warrant and you collect a computer, now you've got to go through it. And some of these guys have hundreds of thousands of images. And we had to sit there and look at every single image and classify it and decide, is it chargeable? Is it not chargeable? Is it something that we can work with? Do we know who the victim is? If we don't know who the victim is, now we've got to try and dig in and try and figure out who that kid is. And I would say conservatively, I probably ended up over the span of my time viewing 2 million images of child sexual abuse and exploitation and videos and things like that. And I don't even know the number. I frankly probably don't want to know the number. And that's not including all the time that I was working undercover in that. And, I did the Chris Hansen, To Catch a Predator stuff. I spent the better part of 6 years as a 13-year-old girl online, putting myself out there, pretending I was interested in these guys, watching them do their thing on the internet, and so that I could catch them and put them away. And so I finally got to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And it was having an effect on my kids. It was having an effect on my relationship with my family and my wife and everything else. And so once I was eligible for retirement, I said, you know what, I got to pull the plug for my own sanity. And, I was able to do that in 21 and it was a blessing that I did, because I'm so much better today than I was in 2019, 2018, when I was having to deal with all of that. And it gives me the opportunity now to spend some quality time with my kids and not be messed up, not have the stuff in my head that I had.
Did you get, you would take, I'm assuming you would take vacation, you do whatever with the family and stuff like that. Did that help? Taking that break away and then you start noticing when you went back to work? Or did you, when you were on vacation, did you just think, oh, that guy's a perv right over there? Oh, this people, did you start labeling people as you're out, at tourist destinations, beaches or Disneyland or whatever?
Cops are normally, pretty paranoid anyway,
right.
Based upon what we do. And my paranoia reached levels where everybody that even looked in my daughter's direction, I was sizing them up and thinking, man, that's a pervert. That's somebody I got to watch. That's somebody I got to deal with. And not only was I having problems, shutting it off to be able to go out and enjoy time with my family and stuff like that, but there were parts of me where I knew if I wasn't on the computer, if I wasn't doing something at my job, the reports were stacking up, the cyber tips were stacking up. Nobody was there to do it for me. And so I felt guilty going on vacation, because for every day that I was on vacation, that was a day I wasn't at my office rescuing some kid, taking some pervert down, doing whatever. And it got to the point where I didn't want to take time off because I felt guilty because I wasn't going to be there to rescue somebody else. And I lost sight for way too long of the fact that I was rescuing other people's kids at the expense of my own.
Right.
And it took retiring to kind of gain that insight and that perspective back that, I'm not helping anybody if I'm not taking care of my own. If I'm sacrificing the limited amount of time that I have with my kids to rescue everybody else's, what good does that do in the big scale, in the big scheme of things? And so I've really tried to work since then to rebuild those relationships with my kids, to really devote more time. I mean, I was a scout leader for my son the whole time he was in scouts. We got him all the way through his Eagle. I was here, I was present, but I wasn't totally. And I have to redevote more of the solid attention to my kids.
Right. And now you have that opportunity. Being retired, you're like, okay, I can focus on you guys. What do you need? And it's the Cat Stevens thing where like, well, we're going to college now. We're going to this. We're doing that. And you're like, well, let me do something for you. You don't want to be the cats in the cradle
Yeah, absolutely.
And
and I'm fortunate that my girls are still young enough that I didn't miss out on everything with them. I'm fortunate that the time that I did get to spend with my son when he was younger, you know, there is still some of those experiences there, although I wasn't as present and active as I should have been. And he's not gone yet. He's 19. He's still living in the house. So I've still got a chance, you know?
Are you like overly protective? Your daughter say, hey, we're going to do this. We're staying over at so-and-so's house. Really? Who's their parents? I want to know everything. I want to know where they live. I want to know all this. And they're like, okay. And my dad, he always wants to know everything. Is that what they're having to go through?
And that's when my wife usually comes up and goes, knock it off. You know, you're being stupid. Stop it.
She's the filters. That's right.
Oh, absolutely. She's the one that says, now just ignore your father on that one. You know, my oldest daughter has just started dating her first boy. And, I was always sure that I was going to be that dad that the first time he showed up, I'm going to be sitting there cleaning my gun.
Right.
And I've mellowed a little bit on that. He's a nice kid, and I'm begrudgingly approving of him. But I did want to know some stuff because I still think that's what a dad should do. A dad should know that kind of thing to make sure that I'm watching out for him. But I'm not nearly as paranoid now as I was 2 years ago.
Right.
And I try and temper it. My wife tries to temper it down. So they're not miserable growing up with dad hovering over them.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to go about doing it. I mean, everything in moderation. However, the evil that is in some men's heart, and it's black as jet, and you have to know. And we have to be on the lookout for it. You just never know. But obviously, we can't live in that world expecting everybody to be that way. So, because I agree with you. My daughter is bringing her boyfriend home to visit in a couple months, and if you're listening to this, David, how you doing, buddy? So,
David, just remember that he has lots of friends, and they're always watching.
That is true.
That was the best thing. My daughter brought her boyfriend to my younger daughter's was in a play, and her boyfriend wanted to come and see it. And a lot of my older daughter's cheer coaches were there because of the, multiple kids in the events and things. And without any prompting from me whatsoever, every one of the coaches and one of the coaches' husbands went up to him. Oh, so you're so-and-so. Oh, you're the boyfriend? Okay, so we got questions. It starts spilling. And they did a great job interrogating him for me. Yeah. I didn't even have to ask him to do it. And so it was a good reminder that, there's eyes everywhere. You're not going to get away with anything.
Yeah, there really are. And, there's the other side of it that, you've had a relationship with your kids. You've spent time with them. You've watered that flower like we talked about before.
Right.
We get to a point where you got to trust that they make the decision that is going to be good. No, sometimes they don't always, but you have to trust them, and you have to, if you're going to, I can't treat you like an adult one day and then treat you like a child the next.
Right.
I got to trust that you're going to be the adult that I've raised you to be, because we're raising adults as little kids.
Right.
We're not raising friends. We're not raising kids. We're raising adults. And that's what we're supposed to, the end goal should be.
And while I've sheltered them from the majority of the nastiness that I've dealt with, I've always tried to bring home enough of it to keep them smart about the choices that they're making, and letting them know that, I know I can't monitor everything you do online, but just understand that somebody somewhere is, and you want to make sure it's the right people, and that you're not doing the wrong thing. And they're really good about it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the way that my wife raised them, and that I was able to be present for some of it.
Present for some of it, and I provided a little bit of financing. That's
right.
That's right. That's right. So you decide to retire. You retire after a long storied career of seeing some of the worst things a person could see. And what did you do upon retirement? Just start fishing all the time and golfing, I'm assuming.
Oh, I wish. I failed at retirement, actually. I failed miserably. So while I was working internet crimes, I finished my master's and almost immediately started teaching at Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I retired from the sheriff's office, my idea was I'm going to keep teaching. That way my kids get to go to ASU for free. I can build that second retirement through the second system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to, give back and be the educator that takes all of my years of experience and throws in a couple of textbooks and teaches the next generation.
Right.
And that didn't last very long. A year and a half into it, the university decided that they were going to restructure a little bit. They were moving away from the instructor position, which is what I had, and they were moving more to the clinical professors that were going to be doing a lot more of the research and things like that. And unfortunately, because I didn't go on with my doctorate, I didn't qualify for that. And so they didn't renew my contract. And in retrospect, it was a good thing because I recognize I love teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like grading, which is rough.
Another part of it. Yeah.
And so I was fortunate that about that same time, one of the background investigators at the sheriff's office was starting his second retirement. And so I was able to hire back on and come back to my original agency in a civilian role, although I'm still a reserve deputy. So I still keep my certification. I'm able to go out and, effect arrests and things if I want to. But for the most part, I'm a civilian and I'm just looking to hire the best people for our county now to kind of carry on and carry the torch. So that's my second career now is realizing that there are good people out there, and I want to try and find the best ones to hire for our agency so that my kids continue to be safe since we live in the county that I work for.
Now, as a background investigator, and this is for people that don't necessarily know, you're going around when somebody applies, they want to be a deputy sheriff for Pinal County. You get their background packet on your desk, and now you get to go travel all around looking into this person's past.
Dig into them, talk to their references, look at their past jobs, look at their past education. If they're a lateral from another agency, I'm going to review everything from their agency, their training, their experience, any complaints that they've had. And I'm going to take a look at this person and dig into them and see, are you right for our agency? Are you going to be successful in, whatever position you've applied for? And do I think that you're going to bring something to our agency in a way that's going to benefit both them and the agency? And if they don't meet the qualifications, if they've got something in their background that I think is going to cause a problem, it's my job to either weigh that and see if it can be mitigated and they can still be successful, or whether it's a deal breaker that just isn't going to work.
And you'll go to, if they're lateraling over from, I don't know, Portland, Maine, you're going to go to Portland, Maine and go talk to people there, correct?
If at all possible, yeah. There are some limitations. The internet helps that we're able to get a lot of that online or get it through emails and things like that. Mm-hmm. So our travel budget isn't quite as extensive as it has to be. But there are situations where we travel to other states and look into them to see whether or not that person's going to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, you might need to go to Hawaii. Now, you might need to go to...
I fingers crossed. If there's anybody from Hawaii listening that you want to come to a red state and work in the Old West, contact me through my website. I will send you the link. We'll get you a job there, but I'm going to have to go check out your original agency.
That's right. Just how it goes. So, and that goes for the other side too, where, you'll get somebody that just, this person looks like the bee's knees, to coin an old phrase, and then you start digging into their past and you're finding some skeletons in their background, huh? And it's like, wow,
you hate to do it, but at the same time, those are the decisions that they made, not me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, man, this would have been, everything else looks good, but there's this whatever that just, sorry, buddy.
Right. And sometimes it's something stupid and sometimes it's something, more than that. And the ones that are legitimate mistakes that we can work past and you can mature through and everything else. We try to work with them. If sometimes it's a deal breaker though.
Yeah. So you're going through just being a background investigator, you prior professor, or I guess instructor at the college, and now you decide that you want to do something more than just looking at people's backgrounds. You want to put pen to paper and do something more now, correct?
I had always had people, with some of the weird cases that I had and some of the characters that I investigated go, man, you ought to write a book. And yeah, maybe thought about it, whatever. And shortly after I retired, unfortunately, my mom passed away very suddenly. And at that point, my grandparents had passed. Now my mom passes, and all of the family history is disappearing. And I came across a journal that my great-grandfather wrote in 1923 when he and three of his buddies jumped in a Model T and drove from Ohio to California. And he kept a journal the whole way. And in 1981, he actually typed up that journal and was preparing it as a manuscript called Hellbent for California. And so I thought, this is a way for me to start taking some of that family history and preserving it in a way that my kids will have it, their kids will have it, so that it's not all lost. Because with my mom passing, a lot of the family history is forgotten. And so I started working that manuscript up and getting it prepared to publish. And I thought, this is kind of fun. Let me see if I can do this on my own. And I sat down and just started knocking out memories from my investigations and from my time with the sheriff's office. And I integrated some stuff from, when I was younger and my patrol work, and then primarily the internet crimes, because I wanted to be able to take that and put it in a format where people can read it and maybe learn something that protects their kids, that helps them be smarter about giving devices to young children, or at least paying attention to the parental controls, things like that. And so I published my great-grandfather's manuscript, and I was able to take some of the information that he had in there and find surviving family members of the other three guys and collect that. So I was able to expand on his original story some, and then take that and use that for the experience in publishing. And then I took my manuscript and I started revising it and playing with it and cleaning it up, and gave it to a couple people and had them help me edit it and stuff like that, and put it all together, and it dropped today. I thought it would take a few more days in the process, but I was pleasantly surprised that this morning I woke up and I had an email from Amazon saying your Kindle book is online and for sale. And a couple hours later, they said, and so's the paperback. And
you're like, yeah, because I noticed today, I was like, I saw the name pop up on your name pop up on LinkedIn, and I saw that I was like, hey, I'm talking with this guy today, and sure enough, it pops up as your book comes out today, and it's ready to go, and everybody should go buy it, basically.
Yeah. I would love for everybody to get a copy, not just because it puts $1 or $2 in my pocket, because frankly, it's not going to make me rich.
Right.
But I want people to understand what's out there. I want people to be a little bit more afraid of the internet than they are, for the sake of their kids, to know that there are so many of these creeps out there, and that all it takes is a little bit of diligence and a little bit of understanding on their part to be able to protect their kids and keep my Padawan, who is sitting in my chair down in Florence doing my job now, from having to deal with other people's kids quite so much. And so I've associated it with a website that I'm still playing with, because I'm not a web designer by any stretch.
Right.
But it's got some links to some different sites that have a lot of good information. It's got some flyers and things on there that people can look at to help them learn about internet safety and to keep their kids safe. It's got some resources that link to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and their NetSmarts program that is educational for kids in a fun way. It's games that they can go on and play games online that they don't realize it, but they're learning how to be safe online because they're answering questions and doing things that promote internet safety. And if I can get that information out through my book, through my website, through talking to, people online, that's what I want to do, because I can't keep protecting people the way that I was, but there's still a need. There's
still a way to do it. And your book is called Cyber Creeps: Real Life Investigations of Internet Crimes Against Children. So
Correct.
If you have the opportunity, go find Cyber Creeps. And I bet you can just Google it, pop up. But
it's on Amazon. If you have the Kindle app or you have a Kindle, it's on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that subscription, you can get it for free. I'm running some various promotions for the ebook at various times, but if you're old school like me, there's the paperback version. And if you go to my website, there's also the link to Amazon. So you can look at all the child safety stuff, and then you can go to the link and buy the book and see all the crazy people that I dealt with and why I think it's so important for people to be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can people get a hold of you? Where can they find out about you, and then any other thing that you're doing and all the ways you're working to try to keep people safe and kids safe? And
so on my website, and I don't recall if I sent you the link. If I didn't, I will, so that you can post it somewhere, but I'll voice it for anybody listening. It's Snyder 1193, SNYDER 1193 .weebly, WEEBLY.com. And that will take you there. It's got a contact section where you can reach out to me, send me an email if you want to ask questions about internet safety. If you have a situation that's come up, let me know. I'm happy to help. I still have some contacts and resources around the country. I can get you in touch, or I can point you in the right direction. Mm-hmm. It's got a whole page of internet safety, and it's got different links to various websites that provide different services for internet safety. It's got some flyers on there that talk about internet safety and things that they can do. It's got links to both of the books and the textbook that I was published in while I was still teaching. And then it's got some information about me and kind of my background, some of the news articles that I've been in, things like that. And then I'm also, I ran into a buddy of mine the other day. He has started a nonprofit for helping first responders get connected with mental health services if they're struggling with something, if they're having an issue. And so I'm starting a new page. It's under construction, looking at mental wellness and looking at wellness for first responders and people who have gone through traumatic incidents, and getting them connected to the right organizations so that no officer, no first responder, no service person feels like they're alone. The services are out there. It's okay to not be okay, and we need to start focusing on making sure that everybody knows there shouldn't be this stigma about mental health. Get the help that you need. Don't let it eat you up. Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it take you down some of the roads that it unfortunately took me at one point. And I was lucky that I had my wife there dragging me back to the dark, or to the light, kicking and screaming at points. Everybody should have that resource, that outlet. And I want to promote him and his 501c3 and some of the other great ones that I know that are out there, so that people can get those services that they need to get the help to be able to keep going on.
Right. Send me all those links. You can send me the email people can get a hold of you at and everything else. And I think it's great, because that trauma that you're talking about, it's not just, you go through a bad incident or something like that. It could be just years of seeing garbage, years of investigating vile humans. And
one of the problems that I had was because I had seen so many images and videos of exploitation and abuse over so many years, that I got to a point where I would come home and it was like like a slideshow in the back of my head. And every time I blinked, the slide would change and I'd see another image of another kid being abused, another kid being raped, another kid being molested. And there were points where I couldn't go to sleep because if I closed my eyes, it would just start that reel. It would start playing that.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately, I'm not proud of it, but I started drinking to a point where I could black out to not see that so I could get some sleep.
Jeez.
And, I knew it was the wrong way to do it. I had been through plenty of, wellness classes and things like that, but it was the only thing I could do to shut my brain off for a while. And I'm very fortunate that I'm at a point now where I've gone through counseling and I've done some EMDR and I've done some different biofeedbacks and things like that to stop all of that. And I can sleep now without having the flashbacks. But, sometimes it's not the one incident, it's the accumulation. Sometimes it's not an accumulation, it's a single incident. Whatever it is, I want people to know that there are resources out there to help you, that the answer is not at the bottom of a bottle of Jack. As much fun as it may be getting to the bottom of that bottle, it's not worth it. And there are better resources, there are better things out there to help people get through whatever it is that's causing their pain.
Right. And I think that's awesome. So yeah, make sure that you send me all those links so I can make sure those get added to when the advertisement for this episode. That'd be really cool to have on there. So, I guess, that's so fantastic that you've been able to, you got through this. You got through that. You're willing to push that information out and share with everybody else. And thank you so much for coming on. It's been an honor to have you on here and talk about this stuff. And, if it's not for people like you, a lot of bad stuff would be happening and nobody would be, the world could be worse than it already is. So I think it's awesome.
Well, and there's still a lot of good men and women out there that are still doing the job and putting themselves in harm's way every day. And God bless them for doing it because, there's absolutely a need. And I appreciate you having a forum like this and an ability for people like me to be able to come and talk about it and spread the word.
Yeah.
The more people hear about it, the better educated they are, the better they can get the help they need or find the help for somebody else.
Absolutely. And that, I do want to say thank you to all those people that do that every day. Our nurses and our teachers who are every day with kids and they're there, they're making sure that they're safe and they're okay. They have a safe place to go because a lot of times school is the safest place that some kids have, home is not,
Right.
And as much as they might act out, that's the only thing they know. And so we got to have patience with them and we're there for a reason. So, thank you guys, those heroes that do that, to our first responders, all you guys that help kids and help people stay safe and give us the country that we have. Thank you so much. And law enforcement that just continue to just put themselves in that harm's way, whether it's bullets or whether it's child porn, you're putting yourself in that position so you can help fight that evil. And that's, you can't thank you enough for that because that's so detrimental to society to have that. And thank you. And then obviously to our veterans, you guys keeping us safe on the home front. I appreciate, or actually on the overseas and outside of the home front. Thank you so much. You guys rock it. So if people want to get involved with having to figure out how to get involved with helping from a civilian standpoint or whatever, where can people go to learn more about this, maybe get involved to help combat this evil?
There are a lot of really good organizations, and I apologize to any that I don't name because I don't want to forget one unintentionally, but some of the really big ones, the Child Rescue Coalition is out there. They're doing some wonderful work. The Operation Underground Railroad is working very hard, primarily internationally, but some domestically, to go after those individuals that are trafficking individuals. The Veterans for Child Rescue is a great organization. They've got a video out called Contraland that talks about the amount of sex trafficking that's going on, and child sex trafficking, especially.
I just listened to a podcast with the guy that started that up. Used to be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. Craig Sawman Sawyer.
Yes. Yeah.
They're doing some great work. Thorn is an amazing organization. Ashton Kutcher is kind of the face of it. Mm-hmm. He and Mila Kunis are really putting a lot of information out there. I know Tim Tebow Foundation is doing some stuff with the child abuse, child sex trafficking, child exploitation kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And then a new organization just started up. They just dropped within the last week called Raven. And I know that the couple of founders that I'm familiar with are one of them's a former Internet Crimes Against Children task force commander. Mm-hmm. A couple others have worked with in the Internet Crimes Against Children realm in various fashions, both in investigations and forensics and things like that. And now they're trying to do some pushes legislatively, and they've put it out on their website that if anybody wants to get involved, they're taking applications. Email them. They will get back to you as soon as they can in whatever way that you feel that you can help, whether it's putting information out on the internet, or whether it's doing investigations, or whether it's financial assistance, or whatever you can do. Raven is there to help with it. And so I would recommend any of these agencies to be able to look for it. And if nothing else, go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Go to missingkids.org and look at the different ways that can be helped there through putting out cyber tips, or just putting out educational information, or just learning yourself so that you can educate your friends, your family, your kids, your grandkids, whomever, so that they can be safer online, and hopefully one day put all of these organizations out of work because there's no more people doing it.
Right. That would be the dream, I think. That'd be awesome to be able to do. So, I don't know if you work out or anything like that, but there's a company called, and I would assume you do, you want to stay lean for when you have to go and deal with background investigations. So there's a company called Dose of Ethos, and they have they have workouts specifically set up for police officers and guys that are getting ready for the academy, guys that are actually in police work. They'll tailor a workout for you. They have workouts for you. They also have meal plans they'll set up for you. And they have if you use the discount code What's a Hero, you can get 10% off all their products on that website. And so they're super cool. That would one step closer to being able to, everybody wants to say, I want to punch a Nazi in the face. Well, you might be able to protect a kid and be able to get some frustration out if you are dealing with helping yourself stay healthy. So I would encourage you, Randall, and anybody else listening, a Dose of Ethos, check those guys out. And if you want to have more of What's a Hero podcast, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and and I'm on LinkedIn. You can find us there, and on the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com, where I have all of my previous episodes, and you can find links to your favorite podcast platform and download our episodes. So when you are finished with Randall's book, you can download these and you can listen to these episodes all you want. And then especially if you're getting ready to go meet him in Hawaii because he's going to be doing your background, check it out. Take care of it that way. So, but Randall, do you have any final words you'd like to tell everybody before we send them home and to go do the Lord's work?
The best thing I can say is for everybody out there, just, watch out for yourself. The world's getting crazier, and anything that you can do to protect yourself, to protect your loved ones, take advantage, because, it's incumbent upon everybody to kind of be there for each other and do God's work to make sure that we're being there for each other. Yeah. And so go out there, be safe, and try and protect people as you can. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, well, Randall, I thank you for coming on, like I said, and you are welcome back anytime. And I'm looking forward to checking out your book, getting through it, digging into it. Maybe we come bring you back on sometime and we can actually
just take that thing apart and dissect it if you want. And
I'd love to, Ken. That'd be
cool.
great. There's some real characters in there, and I couldn't go into too much detail because I don't want to scar anybody from some of these guys. But I got a sneaking suspicion you'll come across a couple of them and go, okay, we need to talk about the brony.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Everybody listening, look for the brony.
Look for
And the
brony.
name of the book one more time.
Cyber Creeps.
Cyber Creeps. Google it, find it, buy it, read it, dog ear it, highlight it, all that good stuff. So for Randall Snyder, I have been Ken Frownfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.